Right. Well, I really appreciate the introduction from Joe and Janice. I live in the city of Vista. I have a few different roles. I'm here in my capacity as transportation policy advocate for Climate Action Campaign. Climate Action Campaign is a nonprofit. We have a mission to stop the climate crisis through effective policy action. We're looking at a zero carbon future for everybody. Right. And equity is of utmost importance. So, one of the things that I'm really excited about, and I've talked to a lot of you about the county's efforts on the regional decarbonization framework. And I wanted to revisit that with you because we are looking at having our first gathering of this year. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get through the slideshow. But I wanted to do an interactive exercise with everybody. Are you all familiar with Menti?
I think you need to educate us, Corinna.
Okay, so what you can do is you can go to menti.com. That's MENTI.com. And there's going to be a code to join. And I'll go ahead and write in here. Menti.com. And code to join is 51.
Where is it? Is it in chat? Is that where we're going to find it?
Yeah, I'm about to put it in this chat. 206. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen.
Sorry, I don't see the thing in chat. The code.
Let's see.
Or just tell us what it is. We can type it in, I suppose.
Yeah, so the code is 51012096. And again, it's menti.com, MENTI.com. And the code to join is 51012096.
I'm going to type it in for you. 5101.
Yep.
2096.
96. That's
okay.
right.
Okay, it's in chat for anybody.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. Does everybody see the screen? And I'll go ahead and move this so that it's bigger. And you can see that the code is also at the very top of the slideshow, but is everybody able to see the Climate Action Campaign logo and a QR code?
Yes.
Perfect.
Will the QR code allow us to log on also?
Yes. So the QR code, if you zap that, you'll be able to join this interactive part. All right. Let me know, Joe and Janice and everybody, if you're able to see it.
I can see it, and I've logged on. I'm on Mentimeter.
Awesome. Okay. And you know what? I went ahead and perfect. I put the QR code and it's on several slides. So just want to make sure everybody gets there. Okay. So can you all see the second slide?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So since I want to focus this first part on the San Diego decarbonization framework, I think it's really important for us to kind of figure out which district we're in. So sometimes, you know, when we're looking at North County, a lot of us might be in District 5, right? And you'll see District 5, Jim Desmond there is our supervisor, but some of us might be in District 3. And you'll see Supervisor Lawson Reamer in District 3. So for folks that are in Carlsbad, you're going to be in District 3. For folks that are in Oceanside, Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, all the way out to Borrego Springs, you're going to be in District 5. So if, let's see here, let me press this. Now, are you able to respond?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So it looks, I see Jim Desmond's head went up there. All right. I'm seeing some of Tara's. Okay. So we have right now 14% of folks are in District 3, 25%. All right. That puts Desmond at 75%, 25 in District 3. So this is going to be applicable to everybody, right? Because the regional decarbonization framework is applicable to the entire county. One of the important things to remember as we move on in this exercise is that the county itself really only has jurisdiction over the unincorporated area. So for some of us that are, a lot of us that happen to be in municipalities, right? If you're in city of Carlsbad, Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, our cities are going to be critical partners to the county if we are to reach a zero carbon future, right? Because the county does not have jurisdiction over the land that's in a city boundary. But one of the documents that we can look to is, if you live in a city, you can look to your city's climate action plan. All right. The climate action plan, some of our plans need a lot of help, right? They're missing the mark, and they're not getting us to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions fast enough. And the climate crisis is continuing to spiral out of control, right? So I want to ask you a question, okay? Because we've heard about the RDF, the Regional Decarbonization Framework, for some time. Do you know when the Board of Supervisors voted to create the RDF? And you got 4 options there. All right, I'm seeing 2021. Okay. All right, 2022. Okay. Okay, it looks like we're tied. Oh, 2021 taking the lead. A few more for 2022. All right. Well, for those of you who aren't sure or haven't been able to vote, this might surprise you, but they actually voted for it back in 2021, right? And we're in 2024. So what's been going on between then and now? Well, the RDF has taken some time, and there are certain parts to it, foundational reports to the regional decarbonization framework. And these take some time, right? And they're open to public comment There was just a great public comment period for one of the components, but this is a multiple choice where there are multiple correct answers. So which reports are foundational to the RDF? And let's see if you all are able to get this one. I'm seeing the RDF technical support, right? It's in the name, so hopefully that's a little bit of a freebie. Or is it a trick question? Okay, I'm seeing RDF. Okay, I saw one. Let's get their playbook. Okay. I'm not seeing any for the Magna Carta though, so. Awesome. All right, so believe it or not, there are 3 foundational reports. Okay, and those 3 foundational reports are the RDF technical report. Okay, and this report is incredible. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, you can check it out on the county's website for the Regional Decarbonization Framework. They have a little button that says, to look at the different publications. And the RDF technical report, for those of you who really want to deep dive into greenhouse gas emission inventory, learn a little bit about the region and some of the struggles that we have to work towards decarbonization, that technical information is going to be in the RDF technical report. Now, one of the things that we want to ensure, right, is that as we transition to a zero carbon future as quickly as possible, that we also don't leave our workforce behind that is trained and highly skilled in some unfortunate fossil fuel intensive industries, right? So think about natural gas, right? If we try to get to zero carbon future, we probably don't want to expand natural gas. But we want to ensure that these folks do have the opportunity to continue to earn a living wage, a high wage, with a good job that has good benefits, right? And we want to expand those benefits. So if you're interested in looking at a green workforce, take a look at the workforce development study. Now, the latest part of the RDF is the Let's Get There playbook. And I know that some of you on this in this meeting have in the past provided some comments. Okay. Now, what's the next step to the RDF? Well, one thing that we need to really take to heart is something that comes, I have the quote here from the San Diego Regional Decarbonization Framework Technical Report, and this really underscores why this is important, right? We're talking about public tools to get to a zero carbon future. And this calls out that this is the first study of its kind. And it showed that even if all the municipalities, so all the cities in the San Diego region, in the county, if they met their current commitments in their CAP, their climate action plans, we would still fall short of our goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And for some, that is incredibly depressing. And it makes you maybe just want to stop, right? And put your hands up in the air and say, well, we're too far gone. However, we're not. We have so many opportunities. We have a lot of things that are converging in this time. And I think all of us are alive in this very specific timeline with these very specific issues that are daunting and generational. And we are meant to work together to make a better future. So we need to push on our municipalities to do more. And we need to push on the county to ensure that the RDF ends up being the type of guiding document that provides implementation strategies for really important reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Because if San Diego can become a hub for funding and community-driven collaboration for different projects that are going to make it easier for us to connect to one another without utilizing fossil fuels, while creating community solar, community prosperity through more public transit, right, which is a lot more cost effective for families and for individuals than having to have your own private transportation for every single trip. If we can do that together, we're going to have a much better community. So the RDF lines out 5 different decarbonization pathways in the playbook. Okay, and here are more than 5. So go ahead and pick the ones that you believe are in the RDF as decarbonization pathways. Which ones are in the playbook? And then we're going to take a look at.
I had to download Zoom again when I first got on. It said something about an update, so maybe that had something.
All right, I see transportation, yes. And believe it or not, so right now the county has their climate action plan in draft form. And the greenhouse gas emissions continue to be extraordinarily high for the transportation sector. It is the #1 emitter at almost 50%. It's at 47% total between on-road and off-road transportation emissions, right? So a lot of folks, they don't have an option right now. They do not have good options to decarbonize their transportation. Why is that? Well, there historically hasn't been a lot of funding for public transit or active transportation, right? And active transportation is the ability to walk, roll, bike, and connect to public transit, right? You need to have that active transportation project connecting to public transit to make it much more reliable and highly utilized. And we see that in different parts of even the United States, right? Where they have undertaken things like Vision Zero, right? 0 traffic fatalities and serious accidents. And they're connecting that to decarbonizing their transportation. And you see that when there's more safe infrastructure for pedestrians and cyclists and more robust public transit, which means reliable, frequent, safe, when you're able to connect those 2 different things, you are able to decarbonize in the transportation sector. And I will tell you that politically, this is a very difficult pillar. So I see that we have 1 for electrify, 1 for transportation, 6 for transportation, 2 for land use and natural climate solutions. Now there are 2 other remaining pathways. Can anybody guess what they are?
Buildings.
Yeah,
All right.
buildings, you can save a lot of energy, but just by weatherizing buildings.
Right. So buildings, one of them. Yep. And then there's one other one on here. Is it the safe routes to school, or is it food systems and circular economy?
Yeah, food systems. Make them
Okay.
farmers markets and 15 minute cities.
Yeah, so food systems is incredibly important, right? Here in San Diego County, in the circular economy, here in San Diego County, we have the most small farms out of any county in the United States. I mean, that's an incredible statistic. We have great climate and different microclimates for growing a variety of different foods and plants, right? We had a huge nursery business. I mean, that's what my grandparents were able to do to build a life for my family and future generations, right? They got into the nursery business. Now things are changing, and they have been changing for a long time. The pressures are, cost of labor, cost of water, cost of land. So it is important that when we look at decarbonization, we look at regenerative farming practices, right? We also look at a living wage for folks that are in that sector, because unfortunately that's sometimes we don't see that, right? But those are the 5 different decarbonization pathways in the playbook: the food systems and circular economy, buildings, electricity and electrifying everything, right? Transportation and land use, and natural climate solutions. And what's a natural climate solution? Well, one of the things that you all might be interested in are native plants. And Joe, I know you talk about, mini forests, and, that is a critical pathway for communities. And when you talk to communities, a lot of times they understand climate solutions as being, we need more tree canopy, right? Like that is always one of the top answers that the community has when they are asked, hey, what do you want to see in your community? Shade and more open space, right? More preserves. So that's critically important. Now, when you hear regional decarbonization framework, what do you imagine? Like, what comes to your mind? And this is an open-ended, there'll be a word cloud, so you can type in different responses. But, think about too, someone who has never heard of the word decarbonization. When I first came across this word, I had kind of a sense of what it was, but had to learn a lot more about it. It was like, okay, well, decarbonization must mean removing carbon, right? So, yeah, there we go. Efficiency, cars, electrification is huge. Some of you all know my teammate at Climate Action Campaign, Serena Pelka. She is an incredible advocate for electrification, and she does a lot of CAC's work on that. There we go, green energy, right? Green energy means renewable energy. It means not drawing down into the ground more fossil fuels, and creating a situation where future generations are going to be impacted in a devastating way. Yeah, cars again, single occupancy vehicles are a huge driver of greenhouse gas emissions, right? We learned already that 47% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the county are produced by vehicles. Public transportation, right? We haven't historically funded public transit here in San Diego County very well. We have a lot of pockets that are disconnected. I've been down to some of those areas doing work for outreach on this RDF, and folks, that is one of the biggest things that folks are asking for. I was just at Dr. Bronner's in Vista last week. They had an Earth Day festival, and I had a rolled up map of District 5, and some of the biggest responses from people, what they wanted to see in District 5, it had to do with more mass transit, more public transit, right? And Dr. Browners themselves, they're looking at, hey, where do most of our employees live that we can create a van pool, right? And that strategy is transportation demand management. And that's something that you should all be asking and demanding, actually, that your municipalities have a TDM, transportation demand management system. Carlsbad has one that has been fairly successful. Of course, there's more work to be done. Oceanside, I believe, was developing one. I'm not sure how successful it is or where it's at in its implementation. But, you know, for those who live in the city of Vista, you probably haven't heard that because it's not represented, right? So those are critical things. How do we get folks to their place of employment? And how do we reduce greenhouse gases for that? Methane capture, right? There are some gases that have a higher impact on the greenhouse effect, right? Methane being one of those. So very good, very good. I love that word cloud. Carbon sequestration, huge. And so, you know, now that we've learned a little bit about the regional decarbonization framework, and this isn't an open-ended response too, but, you know, why would this be an important public tool for our region? What makes it important? And I want to hear from you. And keep in mind, all your responses, they get to go to the county in a monthly report. And I want to give you all some good news. I told you I wanted to bring up a little bit of information about what's happening next on the RDF. But, you know, let's explore this idea of public tools in our region. What is a public tool, right? Public tool can be something small, like, you know, all the municipalities allow for public input, right? So even if there's something not on the agenda at your local city council meeting, but you want to state something about the climate crisis or different strategies that you believe the city should be undertaking, the public tool for that is the open public comment period, right? So for some cities, they have that at the beginning of the meeting. For other cities, they have that at the end. In the city of Vista, you know, that's something that we heard from our residents, that they didn't want to have to wait until midnight to comment. So we actually moved the public comment, or also known as oral communications, to the beginning of the meeting. And I've heard some of you all come during that component of the council meeting and voice your opinion, concerns, suggestions. It's incredibly helpful. And, you know, one thing I'll say is that, you know, we started an environmental commission, and that was something that we heard loud and clear from you, Joe. And so I really appreciate that. I was able to, you know, in my council capacity, nominate someone who is Spanish speaking, who has been doing a trash pickup for almost 5 years now, every single Wednesday, right? And being able to empower our residents to bring forward different strategies and solutions that they see in their respective part of the city, that's critical. And so some cities are doing this, and other cities have not moved in this direction of creating some kind of environmental or sustainability commission. So that's another public tool, right? Because that creates more meetings where you can go and provide more information to the public record. So I appreciate all these different answers, right? Awareness of options. The RDF is they're looking at this to be a set of different examples, a menu of options for our municipalities to augment their climate action plan, right? With different strategies that have data points showing that, yes, this is a good way to remove greenhouse gas emissions, right? The solution sets focusing on environmental justice, critically important. We do have communities of concern that have not received their adequate share of investments for public safety and health. And they're at the front. A lot of times they're in frontline positions that are having to deal with the climate crisis, right? It's incredible. And, you know, I want to open this part because you have me here as someone who worked in the policy world for transportation, but also other capacities where as a council member, right, I work with policy on that too. Through my council position, I get to sit on North County Transit District and represent all of North County, right? So what are some other public tools that you can think of for a zero carbon future? How can we work collectively? And what are some things that, you know, we can finish up this interactive portion and kind of just open it up for questions. Dashboards. I'll give you all a heads up if you haven't seen that the city of San Diego, they're actually going to be implementing a dashboard. And I will tell you that Climate Action Campaign had a landmark settlement. We actually had to sue the city of San Diego because, you know, their climate action plan that they passed in 2022 was the best in the nation. Now, what happens is that you can put a plan together that is so amazing, but if you don't follow through with implementation, then the plan becomes worthless, right? And one of the big issues that we see in the city of San Diego is that they have this great goal of by 2035, 50% of all trips are to be done by either walking, rolling, biking, or using public transit. But they are nowhere near that, and there are no annual benchmarks. So when you think about, you know, other public tools, we also have to think about, well, what do we do to hold cities and the county, right, when their final cap is released and adopted? How do we hold these different jurisdictions accountable to what they put in their plans, right? Dashboards can be huge in providing transparency, right? Public bank, that's something that we don't hear a lot of from policymakers, right? More trees, more plants. Not only do trees help sequester carbon, but you have what's called the urban heat island effect, right? We have created so much concrete and asphalt and paved over every little square inch that when it gets hot, and as the climate crisis gets worse, it gets hotter and hotter, that cities are feeling an enormous impact in additional heat. So the more that we can have pervious surfaces, right, versus asphalt and concrete that are impervious, the more pervious the surface is, the more urban canopy there is, the cooler we can make our cities. And then you got to think about what links up to that. That means that there could be a reduction in the use of electricity to cool down buildings, right? And then, you know, if we have community solar, we can really get to 100% renewable energy for everybody. And we can bring the costs down and ensure that we are powering our devices, our cities, our buildings with 100% renewable energy. eliminate minimum parking requirements. You know, how many councils do you hear talking about eliminating minimum parking requirements? Not that many, right? And I could see how politically it could be difficult to even have that conversation, because parking is an issue for a lot of folks. They don't see enough parking around where they live. So that that makes it difficult, right? But the state has new guidelines, right? And we should be moving in the direction of asking our councils what we're going to do about a lot of free parking. You know, there's different areas. Again, we'll point to City of San Diego. They have parking districts. And what are they doing with those parking districts? There's a fee, right, to park, but they're using that money to fund micro transit. And you've seen things like the PB Beach Bug, right? The Fred in downtown San Diego. You see other cities like Chula Vista, you know, connecting folks with these neighborhood electric vehicles, right, that are low speed vehicles, and they're street legal in California, but the roads have to be 35 miles per hour or less, right? So we start mapping out these different avenues for public engagement and talking points to ensure that, you know, our elected officials are hearing what we want to see happen, but we have to look at the links, right? We can't have that type of micro transit with neighborhood electric vehicles if we can't reduce speed. And the state of California has a new law that was enacted in January of this year and became, you know, part of the law of the land, where now we have another tool, a public tool, to reduce speed limits, right? PPUC, yes. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I want to just check on time. How are we on time?
Oh, we're great. We can easily take as much time as we want for questions.
All right. So I did promise, though, I promised you a little something about next steps on the RDF. Okay. And now this hasn't been disclosed yet. However, because Climate Action Campaign is part of getting the word out for the RDF, I do want to give everybody on this call, you all are going to be the first to hear this, a heads up that the first round of gatherings for this year are happening. And we're looking, and I'll send this information once it's finalized. But if you just want to bookmark for us in District 5, we are looking at having a gathering at Palomar College. If you can, carpool, right? And even better, if you can take public transit, Palomar College has its own little transit hub. It's got to stop at the Sprinter, right? The Sprinter will stop there, and a bunch of different bus routes stop at Palomar College. So we're looking at July 22nd. We're trying to finalize, you know, with Palomar College, but that will be for District 5.
Do you have a time of day?
Yeah, it's going to be a mixer starting at 5 p.m. And the program itself will be from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And some of the topics that we're going to focus on, and that we're going to have folks who come and participate, you know, also try to do some kind of ranking of these. We're looking at the topics of energy, transportation, food systems, and circular economy. And so you can bookmark for July 22nd at 5:30 to 7:30. but the mixer starts at 5 p.m. Palomar College. And once this is finalized, I will let you all know, but I wanted to give you all a sneak peek. That I'll be there. And we're going to have a little bit of a deep dive on the RDF. Now, even future sneak peek is that, I called out implementation. What good are these plans if we're not implementing them? And from public comment, on the RDF, and from what CAC has been asking, along with, SD 350 and some of our other partners, like Urban, at UCP, Urban Collaborative Project, we've been saying, hey, we need implementation. So right now, it's just a little, baby thought. And I want to hear from the public. If this is important to you, you need to let the county know. But they are thinking about having a second gathering at the end of this year to talk about implementation. And so that's where I want you all to think about different projects in your community or throughout the district or throughout the region that you want to see implemented. And keep in mind, right, we want to focus on equity. We want to focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, right? So, very excited. So I wanted to give you all a sneak peek on that. And I'll open it up to questions.
Well, fantastic. Corinna, I could sit here for the next 3 hours asking you questions without batting an eye. But Janice and I will be trading off questions, and I just for opener, since you were talking about implementation.
Yeah.
This is Vista, as I understand it, has, and you can generalize this to every city. I'm just going to pick on Vista as an example.
Please
Right?
pick on it.
Vista has city owns 45 buildings. None have solar on them. Owns parking lots, none have solar. My view is every city building and property should have a microgrid. Those microgrids should be controlled by a virtual power plant. The virtual power plant should be connected to Clean Energy Alliance. When CEA has heavy traffic loads, the opportunity exists to reach into the batteries and the microgrids instead of the gas-powered peaker plants that SDG&E provides. Poway School District says they're saving $33 million by using solar arrays in the school district. Oceanside last week published an article in which they said they expect to save $25 million and create jobs in Oceanside. All of the deployment of everything I mentioned can be done with a power purchase agreement and zero capital outlay by the city. So I say that again, zero capital outlay by the city, and it will reduce energy costs, save tens of millions of dollars, be completely clean energy, get us off of some of the gas backup power peaker plants that SDG&E is foisting on us. I see in this story a win-win-win for the city, for our environment, for the community. This could easily connect into community power infrastructure that would reduce the energy burden on the less wealthy folks in our community and have some equity benefits. I failed to see the downside. So my question is, why is Vista and let me generalize it, why is every city in our region not racing to get this kind of implementation done? What do we got to do to kick everybody in the butt and say, come on, let's join the world of what's possible, save money, clean up our environment, increase equity. Please explain why we're not doing it, or what we got to
That's
do to get it done.
That's a great question, right? And so one of the things that you'll see, not just in Vista, but in some of our neighboring cities, is that, and even the city of San Diego right now, general plans are getting updated. Now, why is that important? Well, general plan set is a plan for growth, right, in the city, meaning more buildings, right? Which, if you're continuing to pipe natural gas, right, you're not investing in community solar, you're continuing to create parking lots that have no solar, you have no plans to put solar on your public facilities, then it's actually going to be more difficult for that city to grow, because you have to have a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions that's state mandated, right? So, I think even if you have elected officials that don't care about the environment, or maybe even don't believe in climate change, right, which is wild to think, but they're out there, they're still elected, there's still some of them.
And $33 million still counts.
Right. And I think that we have to get really good at making different arguments, right? The argument of, well, we're going to have to continue development. We can't, it's not just going to stop. And I know some of us want it to just stop, right? But there are more housing that needs to happen, right? And it's just going to cause more and more development. So we have to be really smart about our development. And if we want to have a city that has the type of housing options that folks need, that is, affordable, that is also healthier, right? That isn't plugged in with natural gas. Listen, I grew up using a natural gas stove, right? I didn't think anything of it until someone from CAC told me, hey, this is actually a really terrible thing. Let me tell you why. But if we don't have our cities change, and the Berkeley ruling made it a little bit difficult when it comes to removing natural gas, right? But we can have different high performance standards, and my teammate Serena can go really in depth on that. But we have to make all these different arguments. And then at the end of the day, if you still see that your city is not moving forward, then it doesn't matter if someone is voting the right way on a lot of other things. This is about our future. So if you don't see your representative trying to push the city and create a consensus with a majority that is going to push for upgrading our standards and modernizing our city so that we can have all the different things that you said, Joe, then it's time to have other people, be in those positions. Putting my council hat in the city of Vista, my little city council hat on, and removing my CAC hat. We just had a meeting. It was a workshop, and we were going through our capital improvement projects. And, it's really easy to sit through one of those meetings as a council member and just, thank you, staff. Thank you. Okay, next slide. Okay, no questions. Perfect. We're done. Let's go home. But I don't like to operate like that. And I know that a lot of us here want to see more. So when a parking lot came up, and this is to your point, Joe, you have witnessed the city council talk about wanting solar on parking lots. So tell me why when we were going through these different capital improvement projects that are laid out for the next few years, there's a parking lot near downtown Vista that we're looking to, spend quite a lot of money to create, and it was not going to have solar. I'll take it even a step further than that. It was not even going to be made so that solar could be put on it in the future. And this is where you need a council member who is going to look at this on the fly, right? And say, hey, there's something wrong, and be able to ask questions of staff and get some direction from, a majority that wants to see something different. And so that's what I was able to do.
Mhm.
I said, hey, we've talked about how we're providing free parking here and it has zero public benefit, right? It's a giveaway. And we're not even talking about putting solar on it. So it may seem like a small win, but it has repercussions. So we were able to direct staff for this parking lot, at least for it to be designed so that you can have solar in the future, right? So the footings could be there, right? And then when we get funding, or when we can put funding aside in our general fund, right? Whichever one it is, if we can get grant funding, or if we can use our general fund money, or a combination of both, right? That we can actually put solar on there and we won't have to redo the parking.
Yeah, but
Right.
just to emphasize, to go back to my question, I mean, the council could direct the staff to issue an RFP or an RFI if you don't want to go too far too fast, to get information about how to make solar pervasive in the sense that I was talking about, at least on city properties, at no cost. We don't have to get hung up on this cost issue. Some things we do, admittedly, and probably most, but this is one that's not a cost issue if we do it the way Oceanside and Poway have just done it. So why isn't the council directing staff tomorrow to come back with to issue an RFI or whatever within a month? I mean, and I don't mean to pick on you, Corinna. I'm just saying,
Well,
it's
I totally welcome.
as a citizen, it's incredibly frustrating.
Right. And I welcome the challenge. And one of the things that needs to be done is probably step one, because a lot of folks that are in elected positions, they don't have the type of knowledge that you have, right? So step one would be, hey, okay, for my local city government, what is the process to get something on the agenda? And then you can look at two spaces there, right? The Environmental Commission, is that a space where this conversation can start? And how do I get that on the agenda? City Council, hey, are we able to get a presentation on this? And then be able to direct staff in one way or another? Do we want to go straight to having a discussion, right? And so this goes into the public tool area. What are the different tools that you have, right? And let me tell you, if you have any kind of information, whether it's a slideshow or an infographic that outlines exactly that, it's going to be easier for the elected official. You want to give elected officials picture books. And I know it's difficult. Right? Because we have so much, some folks like you have so much information, and it's just like common sense. Like, why are we not doing this? So, my challenge to you is, can you find if the city has if it only takes one city council member to put something on the agenda in a city, can you find that one council member that would be a champion? Or maybe you can get two that will bring it forward. Now, City of San Marcos, they actually require 2 council members to put something on the agenda together, right?
Wow.
So looking at the different cities, that's going to help formulate your strategy of like, how do you even get something on the agenda? In the city of Vista, it only takes 1 council member to put something on the agenda. So, you know,
That's great. Okay.
can
Well,
you find find your champion.
challenge everybody on the call, go to at least one city and get one of the RDF initiatives that you feel passionate about on the agenda, working with the council members or whomever, whatever the process is in the city. Let's do it. You know, it's
Yeah,
just we
the
need
time
the
was yesterday.
implementation. Let's do it. So Janice,
Yeah.
please go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm stealing the show here. I don't mean to do that, but
Yeah, Niels asked if you would comment on the CPUC recently adopting the income-based one-time monthly fee rather than based on consumption.
You know, I felt like there was a lot of back and forth going on, so I wish I had a better answer for you. The energy sector is not, I'm mostly well versed in the transportation sector, and my teammate Serena is the one that handles the energy sector for Climate Action Campaign. What I can tell you is that it could be really difficult when you aren't incentivizing folks to have their own solar, right? Rooftop solar. So from my perspective, it's critical that we have good incentives for people to have more rooftop solar, right? And some of the changes could potentially make that difficult, right? And Neil, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I am just, that's not my topic of my subject of expertise. So I have no idea where the CPUC is at this time.
This is related to your area of expertise, and Anne has already addressed it, but I want to ask it just to recognize Neil's second question. And he was asking about the new parking lot and whether or not there'd be charging stations located there. And then Anne did say in the chat that there are 90 public charging stations coming to the city. So maybe you could elaborate on both things.
Yeah, so we're really fortunate that at one point, so this is having my city council hat on again for the city of Vista, but we were really fortunate to at one point have been in Assembly Member Tasha Berner's district, right? We unfortunately recently got redistricted out, but while she was our Assembly member, one thing that you'll see is that we're going to finally have solar panels at the Civic Center, right? This project is taking years and years and years to do. But that's one of the things that we receive state funding for, right? So it's a step in the right direction. The other thing is that we got a significant amount of funding to put more charging stations in the city of Vista. Now the city, this is a point where you need to have multiple different levels of government working together, right? So you have to have the state. If you can get the federal government, get some funding there, that's great. But also we got to look at our school districts, you know? And so between the city of Vista and Vista Unified School District, you know, we're going to be able to put more charging stations online, right? And I will tell you that, you know, one of the things that you can ask of your local school district is, hey, is there an electrification resolution that you've adopted, right? We've seen Sweetwater Unified adopt in San Diego Unified adopt electrification resolution. We have not seen Vista Unified School District adopt that. And if you all are interested in some of that work, again, I can connect you with my teammate Corinna Pelka at Climate Action Campaign. She's been doing a phenomenal job working with students, and students are actually really hyped up about moving towards electrifying their schools, right? So as far as this parking lot, that's a really good question, because that's not a, we had very little to no public engagement. And if someone would have came to the council meeting or Zoomed in and participated virtually by asking that question, it could have spurred a council member to actually ask the question. Because I only got as far as thinking about solar panels, right? I didn't even think about the charging and asked for clarification about charging stations for EVs, right? So that's where, maybe there needs to be, I know everything's done. There's so many different meetings and it's very difficult to get a hold of it, but maybe something that we can create collaboratively, here with your organization is, watchdogging some of these important meetings so that someone could zoom in, right, and ask some of these questions. And that really helps as a council member when you're in the moment. If you haven't had any public engagement prior to the meeting, right, because you can lobby folks prior to the meetings, or you can do it and show up either virtually or in person in Vista and ask a certain question, because that question would have been a great question, right? But we have lost the opportunity in the public forum to have that discussion. Now, can we talk about it in the future? Yeah, but we could have already talked about it last week, right? And had some confirmation from staff. So that's something that as a council member, I'm like, oh man, that's like a no-brainer question follow-up to what I was already thinking about, but I didn't go that far as to ask for EV charging stations. So maybe it's part of the plan, maybe it's not. They didn't get into that level of detail on the staff side. So I wish I had a better answer for you there.
Corinna, you make a really good point. We'd love to know, and I don't know, maybe you can help us point us to how, when the various meetings are going on. I mean, we get notices about council meetings, to be sure, but there is so much happening that we're unaware of that we perhaps would like to offer comments on, but we don't know what's happening. We're just not going to be there. We can't be at everything. And
right, and it's almost a full-time job to watchdog all the agendas, right?
Is there a calendar somewhere that we can look at, or could there be a calendar put in place that we could, refer to learn about things?
I think certainly your organization would be a great place for North County and District 5 specifically, and part of District 3, right, on the county side, to have some kind of a calendar where we can plug in different meetings, right? But you might have to get like an ambassador or two that's gonna go through and either get notification about upcoming council meetings or school board meetings or North County Transit District meetings that are flag them for importance for certain subjects that come up. And maybe that's something that in the future we can all collaborate on, right?
That would be a really useful exercise.
Yeah, and that way someone can say, hey, this is really important. There's going to be a conversation on this. And if you think about, this is what I did prior to being on council, and I still have to do it now, but hacking agendas, right? You look at the agenda, what is in the agenda that you can point out to really help steer the council or question or challenge the council, or, you know, board of supervisors, whatever the governing body might be, to think in this different direction, right? Or to ask different questions. And it honestly, it is so helpful when the public is engaged. And I know it's difficult to do because people are working a lot, and to ask someone to come to every single meeting is probably too much. But collectively, what can we do to ensure that we do have a voice at the table that is asking important questions, and creating a different framework for the council to have a conversation with themselves and with staff about, you know, these different topics. So yeah, let's take that up as a challenge between, you know, Climate Action Campaign and your organization, and see, you know, if that's something that we can put together.
I think it's a great idea. Another transportation question, if I might. A few years ago, we had an evening presentation from Hassan Akrada and a couple of other folks from Sandag about 5 big moves. And I think we were pretty excited about the prospects. And quietly, it seems to have disappeared, you know, from the conversation. I know there have been issues with Hassan and whatever, but what's the status of 5 big moves? The idea of high-speed train infrastructure backbone for the county that would replace a lot of our individual vehicle traffic just makes so much sense in the world of climate and the like. Where are we, and is that just dead, or is there a way to move it forward and so forth?
Well, that's a great question. And as you know, there's a new CEO for Sandag, right? Are you familiar with who the new CEO is? Do you know who it is?
We've not met him, but know his name, that's all.
Okay. So this person comes from Caltrans, right? Which also Caltrans has their own issues where they are being very friendly to increasing VMTs through expanding freeways. However, you know, in the role as CEO, this individual is going to be able to help shape the narrative and influence a regional conversation about how we reduce vehicle miles traveled, how we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and how at the same time we connect people in a better, safer, more reliable way, right? All that needs to happen. Now, the 5 big moves, it was great. It was really forward thinking, but there's a lot of political pushback, right? And we saw that with the road user charge. Now the state of California, have they backed away from the road user charge? You know, no, they're still looking at, you know, an equitable framework for that. And I would say if our leadership were forward thinking, they would, you know, even if they don't want to adopt a local road user charge, they would engage at the state level in conversations about how to build equity into any kind of road user charge that the state might roll out. You know, that Sandag and our municipalities in all levels of government are not going to be able to say no to the state, right? If the state decides to go down this route. So, you know, now the reason why that's important is that if we look at the previous regional plan that was adopted and passed CARB, was the original 2021 regional plan, right, that Sandag had. Now, this was where the whole fight came out, right? And there was a new plan that was amended where it removed the road user charge. And it also reduced the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, right, from above like 20% reduction to 18.6, which was rounded up to the 19%, which is the mandated amount. Now, the thing about regional plans is that you have to be able to fund the projects that are in there. And absent a funding mechanism, you are not going to be able to get to the modern electrified future that's going to be more connected and have zero emission locomotives and more high speed rail and more frequencies and right, all these different things. If you can't finance it, it is not going to be counted for in the plan, right? So that's where we're running into this issue. If we look at Sandag right now, they're in the process of doing their 2025 regional plan, right? And that's where you can interface with this document and really push, because this document, if it doesn't have the financing necessary to implement projects, and if the project list itself is not creating an enhancement in transportation that is sustainable, reliable, and reducing VMT and reducing public transit travel time compared to the travel time in a car, right? Because you see a huge discrepancy between those two. And I'll give you just anecdotally, you know, when I travel from Vista down to San Diego, it's taken me about 2 hours each way, right? If I were to jump in a car, I could half that depending on the time of day, right? Very easily, I could reduce my travel time. And so if we don't make public transit competitive, then we're not going to be able to implement projects, and we also need to be able to finance it. And that gets me to one other point, which is on your ballot, everybody, in November, you'll see a really important ballot initiative. That's a citizens initiative. And what does that mean? It means that it requires a simple majority for it to be passed. And that's Let's Go San Diego, right? And it will be the first time, if this passes, and hopefully it does. We're going to need some help in North County. Folks need to learn about it, right? But if this passes, it will be the first time in the history of our region where there is dedicated funding to transit operations. Now, why is that category so important? Because most of the funding that goes into public transit is not for operations. What is operations? That's where you get your frequencies. So operations is a critical segment to fund if you want to have more frequent and reliable public transit, right? We look at the 303 bus that goes from Vista to Oceanside. It needs to be more frequent. Sometimes I can't even get on because there's so many folks trying to ride, especially in Oceanside. You know, there's a bus stop near North County Transit District, and I have pictures. It's long lines, standing room only, because it's called also a school tripper. A school tripper means that this bus also helps move students when they get, you know, to school or out of school. It's not dedicated to students because it's still public and open, but it does help facilitate the movement of our youth, which right now have, you know, a temporary pilot for free transit for those that are 18 and under. And if Let's Go San Diego passes, you know, we can actually make that a permanent program and potentially expand it to different groups, right? Seniors, up to 25 years of age, right? So for transitional age youth as well. I mean, there's just so many things that can happen, right? So
Related to that, Corinna, Jim asked about bringing back school buses. And then he also mentioned East Bay school districts where they have special transit routes for students. So you kind of already touched on that a little bit, but yeah, your thoughts on getting kids to and from school.
It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue for many reasons. It's a big issue, one, because if you have ever driven past a school or walked past a school or biked towards past the school or been on a bus and past the school during drop off and pickup, it's an absolute nightmare, right? It's a lot of cars idling, which is a disaster for our environment and for those kiddos and for the parents or whoever's picking them up, right? It's terrible because it is really showcasing the inefficiencies in our transportation sector, right? And those parents, I hear the complaints too. Hey, I can't even make it to my job on time, right? And then you have the issue with, well, you know, how do we have a healthy workforce if it's more cost effective for one of the parents to stay with the children because they can't make it to their job on time, and someone has to take their kids to school, right? And there's no school bus. So yeah, I think, you know, if we could bring more school buses that were electrified, right? So electric school buses into play, that would be huge. But that's the school district, and their school districts right now are running on very little funding. So we need to, and there's some grant money out there for electrifying the bus fleets. There's just not enough, right? And that's where we need to work with school districts better, right? MTS and NCTD need to be working in collaboration with school districts to ensure that we have a better system for transportation, not just during pickup and drop off times, right? That are the standard school opens and school closes, but also to connect students to extracurricular activities. That is a huge discrepancy, right? And equity between our students is, can you get to an after school program or a before school program? And unfortunately, the answer for too many of our students is no. So that's a great question, and we definitely need to move in that direction.
Yeah, by the way, Vista has 28 electric school buses.
That's great. And they also have a ton of solar panels, right? So
Oh yeah,
they're
the school
looking at,
district is moving ahead nicely.
they
Gotta get the
are.
city to catch up with the school district. Sorry.
I know. No, I totally, I totally, I
Get-
100%. Yeah.
They could take a different tack and talk a little bit about personal transit options and, you know, active transportation, as you referred to it earlier. I have thought that we could take Vista, any city, and lay out a trail map that
Yes.
covers the entire city. This is, as you said earlier, in the general plan update. It's not something can be, I mean, the map can be done instantly, but implementing it would not be, right? And try to organize the city so that everyone is within 5 to 10 minute walk of one of the trails, and that the trail map covers then the entire city, and that the intention is to build these active transit trails and to make sure that they are tree covered, you know, with good canopy, which, by the way, we need on our bus stops in addition, and lots of other places. But anyway, and that we have rest areas along the trail map so people could A, stop and rest, or B, meet their friends and chat and, you know, whatever. You know, how you know, getting more involved in living in the city and in meeting friends and having social relationships and the like. And we have so much beautiful weather. It's tragic, I think, to not take advantage of it. So my question, I guess, is, what do you think of in every general plan asking for a citywide trail map for whatever the city is?
I think it's a fantastic idea. And I think that you know, the way that you're describing it is that, you know, potentially these will be multimodal paths in the sense that you could walk or you could roll, right? And you
Yes.
could use your bicycle. The more separated trails that we have, connecting little parts of open space, little parts of, you know, forested areas or tree canopy areas with other resources like the senior center, the civic center, downtown, grocery stores, healthcare centers, right? You think about, you know, Tri-City Hospital, right? Now in collaboration with UCSD, right? It's not very easy to get there. And NCTD has a micro transit program that they're going to roll out. It doesn't even connect to Tri-City Medical Center, right? Huge missed opportunity, right? But we definitely should have, it's a huge public amenity and public benefit to have these types of trail systems that are also, and you said a very key word, which is shaded, right? So even if we look at the inland rail trail, where's the shade there? It's only going to get hotter and hotter. We have to think about, okay, where's the water filling station? Where's the recharge for the e-bike? Where's the place that you can fix your bike that's off the inland rail trail, right? Or maybe right on it. Is there a municipal way that you, or a county way that you could have, you know, small bike shops or rest stops, right? The shade is a critical component for active transportation. And I do want to share something with you all because I'm not, I know I saw some of you at the PCAP meetings, right? The Priority Climate Action Plan meeting that Sandag's doing through an EPA award. But one of the things that they have been saying is that, hey, you know, for this first phase of priority projects for the priority cap, we need to show a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And active transportation does directly correlate with a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Now, outside of that, you talked about some really important aspects of active transportation as well that you can see in different studies, including some recent studies, even out of UCSD. But folks that are participating in active transportation are generally happier and healthier of mind and body, right? So you see all these great benefits to the public, but the infrastructure is not there right now. You know, I walk and I bike. I just got an e-bike, no throttle, pedal assist only. So I'm excited to use it. I've ridden around Vista, but it's not super safe right now, right? We need protected bike lanes, which is something that you'll see in the city of Vista by the end of this year, a multi-million-dollar investment in separated bikeways. But we need to see that throughout the region, and we need to connect those facilities, bike facilities, right, to these types of trails and to the resource centers that I outlined before, right? Being able to get your grocery, being able to get some entertainment, access recreation, healthcare, all that stuff. So we need to do it better. And the great thing is that we already have the public right of way to do it, but we have been monopolizing the auto industry. And most of our public right of way has been given to them for free, right? So we already have the area to do it. We just have to figure out how to have a more sustainable transportation system, which includes the infrastructure. So maybe you don't get 3 lanes to go in one direction for a car. Maybe you get 2 lanes, and one of those lanes is converted to a tree canopy, protected bike lane and walking trail. Right.
I'm all in. Janice?
I don't see any more questions in the chat. Hope had one about airports, but she's logged off, so.
Okay. Well, might I suggest that we actually wrote a climate action plan tonight? I mean,
That we what?
we wrote the outline of a key, you know,
Yeah.
between the initial exercise that you did in our conversation, we wrote a climate action plan tonight that, if implemented, would make a profound difference. I mean, there's a few
It
other
would.
things to include, you know, agriculture and food systems and water systems. I mean, there's additional stuff, but we made major inroads into a climate action plan tonight. So
We did, and we focused on those two sectors, right? Energy and transportation, which are the two most polluting sectors.
yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Corinna. We really, really appreciate your time and your knowledge and insight. And I love the idea that we'll put together some kind of calendar for us so that we can be aware of, you know, more aware of what's happening, and therefore have better opportunities to interface and to what I like to call cause good trouble, you know.
Yeah, I'm
Get
all
it?
for it. So let me know how I can help.
Yeah, you're right. So Janice, could you help us close?
Yes. So Corinna, the North County Climate Change Alliance donates a tree in honor of guest speakers. And so a tree has been planted in a U.S. National Forest in your name, and you will receive a certificate in the mail. So thank you very much
Wow.
for your time, and it's just a little something to recognize all you're doing and for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much. That's the best present I've ever gotten. That's so cool.
You're most welcome, and we appreciate your being with us, and look forward to many more fruitful conversations.
Likewise. Thank you.
Good night.